Chapter 3.
John drops the sealed packet of meds and pats his hands over Billy's rack to be sure his eyes are not deceiving him. Billy Wiseman, suffix 470, is not on his rack, ready for transformation. He clutches his wrist screen to be sure he is in the right compartment. Vitasat, the medication that keeps every worker on track, often makes him forget non-essential details. But the location of Billy's compartment isn't non-essential. And his own wrist screen should have warned if he'd made a wrong turn. This is the place, this is the time, he's where he's supposed to be. Billy should be here. Dizzy, he plops down on the waste stool and scrolls his wrist screen for information. His hands shake. Has he totally broken down? He can't find Billy's data. Maybe he's forgotten how, or maybe the system is finally collapsing. How would he know the difference? He scrolls for his own record and breathes easier when he finds it. He's John Flossart, suffix 315, medtech in Circus 1. He's almost sure he's conducted Billy's 470 transformations. And didn't Billy preside at every one of his 315? They're colleagues in the Circus 1 clinic. If he could access the oldest data, he's sure he'd find they've been each other's medtech from the beginning. Not that he remembers the beginning, but he thinks it was a very long time ago. His wrist screen warns of a blood pressure spike. His pharma analyst will note it, but not his personal medtech. Medtech Billy is not to be found. He's offline. He must wait. The system may be collapsing or Billy may be offline, but John cannot leave until the sitter comes. A medtech gives the injections and presides at the first 2 hours of a worker's transformation. Sitters do cleanup for the next day or two. The last time, Billy had sitters for 3 days. 2 hours later, the first sitter taps his shoulder. What's going on? Where's the patient? Pieces of an answer are trying to come together in John's mind. His feet are asleep. He shakes his head. Call Atlas, the sitter says. John's wrist screen squeezes. I have to attend another patient. He picks up the transformation packet, stamped with Billy's name and his suffix. You call him. Atlas frightens me, the sitter says. John's wrist screen registers another uncomfortable surge of emotion. Atlas is their super chief of facilities, personnel, and security in Circus 1. He scares me too. The clinic lights flicker and dim, as they often do when the room is full of medtechs busy at their terminals. John looks away from his terminal's spinning clock to see the blue-uniformed super by his side. Atlas. John has one of his odd, random thoughts. Is it a requirement for supers to be so tall and broad? Tell me about Billy Wiseman, suffix 470, Atlas says. From the beginning? In comparison to Atlas, Billy is, or was, of slight build. Maybe also bow-legged. At least he had an odd gait. Those details aren't important. The important fact is that Billy is offline, possibly lost. An unimaginable state. John feels lost himself. Not from the beginning. Recent time, dummy, Atlas says. John swings out his cubicle's extra seat and offers it to the super. When Atlas sits, his massive legs crowd the space, and John scoots his own legs under the desk. Billy was due for transformation. I went to his compartment at the arranged time, but he wasn't there. Has his PA said anything? PAS, the pharma analysts, receive workers' data and regulate their meds, including the strength of those in the transformation packets. Atlas taps and scrolls his wrist screen. Only that Billy has been offline since 1000 yesterday. The shock of abnormality lingers. John doesn't know how to proceed or where he's supposed to put the packet, stamped with Billy's name and number. Atlas reads from his wrist screen. There's been 3 months since Billy's last transformation. He looks up. Did it fail so soon? The security super's glare makes him feel guilty. That must be the case. Billy's last transformation left an impression in John's memory, but not details. I think it wasn't good. He's the highest number in Circus 1, Atlas says, possibly in the entire town. Lately, John is irritated by any kind of extended talk, and his wrist screen is prompting him to attend to his patients, but he can't leave until Atlas dismisses him. The eyes of the super hold him in his chair. What can he say? He has an odd thought. Billy was tired of living. Maybe he was transferred to a location outside the town walls, John says. An outpost or farm. That didn't happen. I'd have to approve any transfer, and he'd still be online. Then his wrist screen crashed. He's lost somewhere. Lost. John surprises himself, speaking a thing so aberrant and fanciful. He looks around to see if someone else said it. Atlas's bulging eyes make John think of terror, an artificial reaction, occasionally induced in their required arena entertainments. Atlas stands and looks around the room of cubicles. If Billy's wrist screen crashed, the fabricator would get a distress signal from its identification number. That didn't happen. Does Billy have a workstation here? John's wrist screen squeezes. He has hundreds of notifications. He directs Atlas to the adjacent cubicle, Billy's. May I be excused? I have patients waiting. Billy's desk and the floor of his cubicle are littered with wrappings from meds and nutrition packets. Atlas steps back. Did this worker not know how to use the recycler? He was breaking down, John admits. The usual overload of patients clogs the waiting room, queuing behind ropes, waiting to be called by their med techs. Billy's patients are there too, scheduled and prompted by their wrist screens. John passes along the clinic staff's side of the ropes toward his examination room. Let them wait. Billy's patients are not his duty. Shouts from a worker in Billy's queue make him stop to look. They say, Billy's not here. What are we supposed to do? John understands and sympathizes with the confusion spreading among Billy's patients. Their medtech is as vital as their nutrition packets. But the tone of this worker's voice suits the emotion he saw in Atlas's eyes and the feeling in himself when he found Billy's compartment empty. It's almost like fear, the stuff of entertainments. The complainer is a head taller than the others, and his red worksuit identifies him as a fabricator. Workers in other queues turn to watch the disturbance. The fabricator shouts, I hear they've sent him to the old-timers' farm. John shakes his head and tries to wave down the growing disturbance. The old-timers' farm is a legend that surfaces now and then. It's a way of saying a worker is no longer immortal. The idea always intrigues a few, but it has no lasting power. Nonsense! John's strongest, most vehement voice does not have the volume or conviction of the fabricators, but other workers stop murmuring and follow him with restless eyes. If their personal medtech is not here to fill their needs, someone else will have to save them. John reaches across the rope and scans the complainer's wrist screen with his own. The fabricator is Rengo 8, here by appointment. While John scrolls the worker's current data, Rengo fires questions. Is Billy offline? What are we supposed to do now? Who will go offline next? Everything's fine, John says to the crowd. He lifts the rope and motions Rengo to follow. Meds do not produce the same result in every worker, and occasionally the clinic staff must subdue and soothe a patient with a dose of Vitamood, the leveler. New murmuring in the crowd suggests that others wish they'd thought of this means of getting attention. they won't do more than mumble. On Vitasat, the compliance drug, most are incapable of disobedience. John reads Ringo's vitals and current chemistry, but has no access to his history and cannot treat him without permission. In his exam room, he sends a request to the fabricator's PA for emergency treatment. When the permission comes back, he sends an order to the pharmacy for a half-tablet of quick-dissolving Vitamood. "I'll come back tomorrow," Ringo says. "Please don't. You'll get an order from health maintenance." He's making this up. He remembers no time when such a thing has happened. "Make it soon," Ringo says. Because the fabricator has been disruptive, John escorts him to the pharmacy to get his Vitamood. Back at the waiting room, he taps his wrist screen to call the first patient. He's exhausted by talk, first with Atlas, then with Billy's patient. Dosages are not his business, but he wonders if Ringo is under-medicated because the curiosity and assertiveness in him are not acceptable traits. Maybe he should tell Atlas. Hundreds of patients are waiting. "Billy," he thinks, "are you in a better place? And is there room there for me?"